Greetings and welcome to College Planning with the National Alliance for the Advancement of Haitian Professionals. I'm Dr. Ketsia Alert Sadler, founder of College Cafe and your moderator for this webinar series. Thank you and welcome to 2024. This is our first episode for the year, and I am so excited because life is all about first. It's our first episode with authors of books. So I'm really happy that they were able to take time out of their busy schedules, and they all are very busy. So I'm very grateful to them that they are able to be here with us this evening. But before we get started, let's thank our partners for this webinar series. First, we have, of course, the National Alliance for the Advancement of Haitian Professionals. Without them, we would not be here. College Cafe, Parent Matters, and Golden V. Thank you so much to our partners in this mission. So as I said before, tonight is the first in 2024 and the first where we have authors. So let me give you a little bit on their brief bios because they're going to share so much. I don't want to, minimize their what they've done in their lives to get them to this point here. So I'm going to give just a little taste and then we'll get into the program. So first we have Tim. Oh my gosh, Tim, I forgot your first name. We had
Timothy?
Just a little note. Mr. Timothy Fields, my fault. Timothy Fields, who is the Senior Associate Dean of Undergraduate Admission at Emory University. He's a native of Arlington, and he's a former college athlete who earned a BA in psychology from Morehouse College, an MED from the University of Massachusetts Amherst, and has completed all doctoral work at Georgia State University. Yay, we hear a hooding coming really soon. Congratulations on that, on those achievements so far. And then we have his partner in his book, which we're going to talk about real soon, Mr. Shereem Herndon-Brown, who's the founder and chief executive officer of Strategic Admissions Advice, an educational consulting company specializing in college counseling, curriculum creation for charter schools and school districts, personalized college advice, and essay coaching. He's Brooklyn bred, a graduate of Westtown School, Wesleyan University with a BA in English and African American Studies, and Middlebury College Breadloaf School of English, where he received his MA in English. And rounding out our third panelist for this evening is Ms. Taliah Givens, who is an engineer, educator, author, business owner, who is a native of Paterson, New Jersey. So another first this evening, she is a hidden figure, the first hidden figure we've had as a guest on our program this so far. And she is the first African-American woman to complete a dual engineering degree from Alabama A&M University and the Georgia Institute of Technology in electrical engineering technology and computer engineering, respectively. She later achieved a master's degree in public administration under a full fellowship as a 2006 National Urban Fellow and later a 2012 American Leader of Change. And tonight's program is a little bit different, as I said, because we have three authors, 2 books to share with all of our families. Timothy and Shereem wrote, and that is actually the second edition of their book that's out now. So we're real excited about that. Their book is called The Black Family's Guide to College Admissions, a conversation about education, parenting, and race. And they also have a podcast called The Application to Admission. And they're working on a nonprofit. So I'm really, really excited to have them talk about their book. And then also Ms. Taliah Givens is going to talk about her book, which is about the 5 A's. So I'm going to allow her to give a little more information about that. So before we get started on the nitty gritty, let's have each one of you share with us your academic journey and how you got to your career journey at this point now. So we'll start with Ms. Givens.
Thank you so much. So I actually, first of all, thank you to this wonderful organization for doing these great webinars. It's a pleasure to be here and to start off the 2024 with this wonderful group of individuals. To all the parents, all the students, welcome. Very excited to share. So as Ketsia explained, I'm from Paterson, New Jersey. And as I was growing up, in the 80s and 90s, we all know that so your family can be very instrumental and making sure that you get the education that you're supposed to receive. And I didn't really have a choice. My parents said I'm going to college, and so first generation college student. But instead of just saying I want to go to college, growing up in my community and being very immersed in African American history and our culture, our stories of that we went through, and the start of all of our different historically Black colleges, and of course growing up with a different world, and seeing so many young people from my church and my high school, Patterson Catholic Regional High School, leave high school, go off to college, HBCUs, and come back. I just knew I wanted to go to an HBCU. Then having had an opportunity to grow up and get immersed into computers and code at the age of 8, and even through high school, I went on this trek towards going into STEM. And so the choice of going to an HBCU was there for me at the age of 14 as I went into high school. It was just, what did I want to study? And I decided on computer engineering with a great conversation with my uncle, who talked about future, industries that were coming up at the time. But I knew I wanted to attend an HBCU, but study computer engineering. So it just narrowed my search. So I went into the college search, the college application and college going process with that focus. I said HBCU, and I said computer engineering. Now, this is the early 90s. There was not a lot of HBCUs in that focus, but there were a lot of computer science. And then like North Carolina A&T did have computer engineering at that time. And then so I only applied to 5 institutions. This is not the best strategy. My co-panelists will probably say very different. But since I didn't want to go to school locally, I only chose 5 schools to apply to, and Alabama A&M, Spelman, North Carolina A&T, Fisk, and FAMU. Because of that major focus that I had decided on. It didn't matter the HBCU. I knew I was going to enjoy my experience. And so it turned out after all of my applications went in, and I did the institution's scholarship application that went along with that. As the admissions letters came in, I received a full scholarship to Alabama A&M. I did receive funding from the other institutions as well. But when I got the certificate in the mail saying I got a full tuition, room and board, fees, I said, Mom, I think I'm going to Alabama A&M. So that's where I ended up. And it was the best decision for me. And I was a dual degree student. And I chose them because they had the dual degree program with Georgia Tech. I said, hey, I was already told in high school that you have to do about 5 years at any institution to get an engineering degree. So I said the time wouldn't change, but I'll be able to get 2 degrees. Let's do it. So that's the long and short of how I made that decision, how I got down that path. And then just getting into my career, I was at Georgia Tech in Atlanta, had to transition, whole new city, whole new institution. That is a great part of the story. I hope that we can get into that about what that's like to go to 2 different institutions and then achieve your degree. But most of my career, with the scholarship that I got outside of my full scholarship, I got another scholarship from the Department of Energy, which was a $3,000 scholarship in addition to my full scholarship. And that came with internships. So that gave me exposure into using my education. Every summer I could go to a different Department of Energy lab to work. And then I got another scholarship through Duracell National Urban League. They gave me a scholarship later on in my junior year, and that came with an internship experience as well. So throughout my college experience, I had a chance to dip my toe in different industries, different uses of my degree, and I landed in optical solutions, network engineering, and telecommunications industry as my first career before what I do now. So that's in a nutshell my story.
Okay. Thank you. So, I mean, and in a nutshell, you just said a whole lot. You touched on so many different things: the STEM piece, the internship piece, the scholarship piece, which is why we do these webinars, because that's all about the exposure, figuring out what you want to do, having a plan, getting there, and along the way, what steps are you taking to achieve that goal. So, thank you so much for sharing that part of your life so far. Mr. Field, let's go to you. Tell us about your journey.
So originally from Arlington, Texas, and come from a family of educators. So my mother worked with TRIO programs, worked with first generation students, access programs. My father got his doctorate from the University of Massachusetts Amherst. He was a vice president of a junior college. So when it came time for me to think about college, it wasn't if I was going to college, it was where I was going to college. I went on a Black HBCU tour. Spring break about junior year, and I just wanted to go to Atlanta and have some fun. Wasn't really thinking about colleges, but I ended up on a Morehouse's campus, and so I ran track and field and cross country. While I was there, I had the opportunity to meet the guys on the team, and I fell in love with the brotherhood and everything that Morehouse represented from meeting those gentlemen. And that you say you applied to 5 schools. That was the only school I applied to, which was against my parents' wishes. But I was so dead set that I wanted to be in Atlanta. I wanted to be the Morehouse. And I, tell anybody that wants to listen, it's one of the best decisions that I ever made. And so I spent my 4 years in Atlanta, ran cross country, track and field, a very accomplished All-American athlete. And then when my time was up, I followed in my father's footsteps and went to the University of Massachusetts Amherst for graduate school and had 2 years up there. First year, worked in residential life and figured that wasn't what I wanted to do. And then I fell into access programs. So I spent 5 years working with TRIO programs, both in Massachusetts, and came back to Atlanta, worked at Atlanta Metropolitan College in student support services. And then for the past 20 years, I've been at Emory University in undergraduate admission. And so I have the great opportunity to travel the country, to recruit students, to talk about access college and the opportunities that colleges present. And, it's been a great opportunity for me. I say I haven't worked a day in the last 20 years.
Well, that's good to know that your job is not work. Awesome. And you had the experience of doing HBCU undergrad and a PWI for graduate school. So 2 totally different experiences. So thank you. All right, sir. Mr. Brown, you are up.
All right. Thank you so much for the introduction. Thank you, all of you, for being on this panel. I am an only child from Brooklyn. I'm a first-generation college student. My parents were committed to me getting the best education. My father's an immigrant from Panama. My mother grew up in Brooklyn herself, and sent me to private schools all my life. So grades 1 through 9, I attended Brooklyn Friends School, which is a private school in downtown Brooklyn. I lived in Bed-Stuy, would come into Brooklyn Heights, and then I went to boarding school for my last 3 years of high school, also a Quaker school. And at the time, in the early 90s, I was told by my predominantly white institution, independent school folks, that going to a liberal arts school was the way to go. It was important to me to go to one that was the most diverse. I wanted to be around more Black people like you. The different world was, Lisa Bonet was everything to me. And, if I could find me a Whitley one day, I'd be all right. But bottom line was I didn't know enough about HBCUs, to be quite frank with you. And, I had a guy in my neighborhood go to Morehouse, another guy in my neighborhood. I obviously had friends who went to Howard, but it wasn't, it just didn't intrigue me. It wasn't what at the time I thought was my path, particularly because of the word prestige. We can go down that rabbit hole, what that means, but at the time, that's what I was thinking. So I wanted to be around as many Black people as possible. Wesleyan, I had 2 friends going there. I'd visited. I knew that other Black people from independent schools in New York City were going there, and ended up being all the kids from independent schools in New York going to Brown or Wesleyan. So it was a great time, met great friends. Middletown, Connecticut is not a rocking place to be, but I did go to spend a semester in Kenya. So going to Africa for a semester was awesome. Pledged the Black fraternity, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, and that was very important to me in terms of sustaining my relationships. I did spend a lot of time actually undergoing the initiation process, but again, at post-graduation, it's been hands down the best part of my Wesleyan experience has been my friendships, Omega and otherwise. Did a taught at both Brooklyn Friends School and Westtown School as an English teacher initially, and then became a college counselor. Went to Georgetown University and worked in admissions for 1 year. Quickly realized it wasn't for me. I didn't like selling one school, right? I was a representative for Georgetown, and while it's a great school, my gift wasn't thinking about one place, it was thinking about many places. Again, as much as I want to shake my finger at y'all for only applying to one school and 5 schools respectively, I applied early decision to Wesley and only applied to one school. So I got nothing to say. Classic parent move of do what I say, not what I do. But all that said, I've enjoyed my ride in this college counseling space. Tim and I's podcast Application to Admission shows that he has this very unique admission experience. Worked at Emory for 20 years, the TRIO programs, Access. So my experience is much more on the application side, where I really do enjoy and thrive helping families to explore the college application process, navigating it, definitely getting my hands dirty with essays, given my English background. So that's my educational story. I'm happy to be here, and I'm glad Tim and I collaborated on this book to show 2 sides of the coin in applications and admission, and hopefully it can be a resource for anyone on the panel and beyond.
Well, thank you for sharing. And I have the Caribbean roots as well. I'm from Haiti, and we taught, private school for high school. And then I remember getting a scholarship to Rochester Institute of Technology, and parents like, no, let's wait and see what Columbia says. So that's where I ended up going. But so it's very interesting. Also, I only applied to 6 schools, and just kind of an aside, but related, I feel like back prior to the whole advent of the internet, the Common App, which I don't think was out in my time. I'm even older than you guys. I'll put my age out there. I did college from 85 to 89. So definitely 84 to 85 doing applications. Everything was paper. People were maybe 8 schools top, if that many. Six for me. So it's definitely changed. But we all achieved some amazing results from it and have been able to use our educations to build a foundation and provide a springboard for what you all are doing now. So I'm very thankful that you all can come and share on that. So let's talk about, you kind of hinted on a little bit, but let's talk about the books that you all have written, and what additionally can you share about your experiences that prompted you to write the books. So you want to start, Ms. Givens, first?
Sure. I'll jump in. So my book is titled Worth the Investment: From Mentorship to Scholarship, Uncovering How to Really Become a Student Worth the Investment. And what really prompted this book, I have wanted to write this book. Initially, it was as a thank you letter. I really felt like getting a full scholarship and all the other subsequent scholarships, including my fellowship for master's, a full fellowship for a master's degree, had so much more to do with what I did outside of the classroom, because I was an honor student. I also went to private school from kindergarten through senior year of high school, Catholic school, but it was a great education. And my mom and dad wanted me to get a college prep education, right, at that time. And I was an honor student. So I was in the class with smart people, right? When I graduated from 8th grade, I graduated valedictorian of my 8th grade class. So I went into high school saying, oh, you're smart. Okay, let's figure this out. And then, like I said, I was in the community, a strong Black church community of students who were going to college, right? They would go to college, come home, tell you about it. And so I knew that some of them went out there on football scholarships, other athletic scholarships, and academic scholarships. So I knew this whole idea of scholarship, right, existed. And for some reason, I cannot pinpoint why, but I went into high school with the mindset that somebody's going to pay for me to go to school. I don't know how we're going to make this happen, but I just feel like I should get that scholarship thing, So maintain the GPA, but that's a parental expectation. You bring home the A, right? But the outside things, it was my extracurriculars. I went into high school having done cheerleading, my community involvement. I was a member of my church choir, from a little kid all the way through. But when I got to high school, that leadership piece really took a hold. So while I took dance classes as a student of dance, by the time I was a freshman in high school, I was teaching dance. You know, I started, of course, when you go to high school, even though you captain of the cheerleading team, 8th grade, now you gotta start over. So I started the cheerleading, and eventually by the time I was a senior, I was captain of the cheerleading team. I was a member of my gospel choir in high school. I mean, in church. But when I got to high school, we had a choir, and I eventually became director of that choir, even without having the ability to play the piano. Okay, but I was directing the choir. So you see this pattern, right? But there were so many adults that had the influence, the mentorship in every one of those activities. And it was my parents, along with those adults, being a member of the NAACP, started as an 11-year-old NAACPer, right? Learning about civil rights and the work that had happened in my local city and across the country. All through high school, I just continued to build my leadership in that focus area because I loved it. It was that thing that really, really got me excited. And I was able to go all the way to a national office in that organization. Other kids do the same thing. They do it with other sports. They do it with scouts. They do it in so many different ways, right? But it was those mentors that made me want to write the book initially. And then as I wrote the book to say thank you, to recall the stories of the skills I was building, the leadership I was building, I began to see this thread, which led to, this is more than just a story or a memoir or a thank you letter. This is something that other families could use. And so I began to see a framework, and with what I call the 5 A's, which represent the 5 areas of activities and achievement that I focused on, that I share with all students now through the book, so they can use my stories. But instead of them having to go figure out what the lessons are, I like to offer the lessons through the framework. And then I built a workbook where students can then now track their achievement. They can build their own achievement tree along the 5 areas of achievement, which are building your academic self, that's a given, building your artistic self. For me, that was dance. Building your athletic self. For me, that was cheerleading. Building your activist self. For me, that was the NAACP. And then building your architect self. And that was computers for me, but it can be something very different in other students who are builders. And so that framework can help families narrow in on what activities are your kids involved with, and then where can you take that. So when I changed my career from engineering into youth development and career development for students, it was specifically because I spent the most extracurricular time building my activist self. I just didn't have a language for it when I was a 16-year-old in high school. And so students can use this framework. They can use this story, my story, to think about and reflect on what are they getting involved in? What can they do that will then give them what they need to actually complete the scholarship application and show that they are a student worth the investment.
And I thank you for sharing that. And what's important is that you talked about the 5 different areas. And a lot of times families get caught up in thinking about scholarships that it's only on an academic level.
Right.
But as we see, it's not just academic. Your athleticism has a lot, your artistic ability, because so many kids go to school because they played the oboe well or something. They can sing very well. So it's very important. I hope that the families are hearing that there are different areas where you can shine in order to get your education paid for in full. As Ms. Gibbons said, she went to college for free. So remember that, families. All right, thank you. So Mr. Fields and Mr. Brown, please share with us. Tell us about your book. You're on mute.
I apologize.
No,
our book is really similarly an outgrowth of what we feel to be our lived experiences professionally, but also very purposeful. Like I said, Tim comes from a family of educators. I'm a first generation college student who's now been involved in education in various capacities for almost 30 years. So it felt right to share what we knew with our people. I said it right in recorded session. So yes, the book started in 2020 during what we call the racial reckoning of America. So much was going on. I don't need to recount it all, but it was important to us in this time to make our contribution. So I did call Tim and say, hey, I have this idea to write a book about college admission specifically for Black people. And he ran with it, almost to the point where I wish that he didn't. Well, you put your ideas out there to somebody and you're kind of saying, nah, that's stupid. And then, okay, go away. And I can be mad at him. But he really took the reins and continues to take the reins on us creating something that's a resource for a lot of different people. Yes. 2/3 of the book, 70% of it is for anybody. I don't care what color you are, what race, ethnicity. It's a college admissions guidebook. However, given his HBCU experience, given my experience in independent schools as a Black person, given the fact that we're Black husbands, Black fathers, we wanted to make sure that some of the questions that were being asked of us by our friends, our peers about college admissions were answered. HBCUs versus PWIs, and things of that ilk. So, we are proud of what we've produced. We're glad that it's been able to be in a second edition already. It was released in September 2022. And then, quick year and a half later, it's January 2024. And we have a second edition out primarily because so much has happened in college admission. The Supreme Court decision on race-conscious admissions obviously kind of led that. But there's also ChatGPT and the advent of the importance of essay writing, which has always been important, but now even more so because of the SCOTUS decision, because of artificial intelligence, we felt that we needed to give a little bit more guidance on that. And we'd been asked that when we were on our book tour for the first book. And then lastly, is something that, again, I will always give Tim credit for this, is taking the lead on a chapter about mental health, in which we know that mental health affects children of all colors, all races. And this college admissions process has gotten out of hand to the point that if we don't address it as adults in the room, then somebody's really, I don't want to say the rest. So we took the lead on Tim took the lead, excuse me, on writing a chapter about mental health, which we're extremely proud of because it's provocative. It allows to put the shared responsibility on students to not compare themselves to others, to parents to not put undue pressures on children unnecessarily, for educators, school counselors, educators like myself to not talk about the same schools over and over again and kind of being the norm and the thread in the conversation. And lastly, on colleges, right? Colleges need to stop deferring kids and waitlisting them and all that stuff. We understand enrollment management, but there's a psychological effect. This kid's not going to get in. If they're not competitive, let's go, rip the Band-Aid. So we wanted to write that chapter because, again, we are at a crisis. We are nearing a crisis with students' mental health as it pertains to college admission. We want to, again, as I started by saying, we want to make our contribution to hopefully thwart that.
And just, the only thing I'll add is that, we had 3 primary goals that we wanted to do, cover as we were writing this book. One, we wanted to narrow the information gap. So how are Black families and students getting access to good college counseling information? We know the type of schools that many of our students are at. We know the sizes of counseling loads that many counselors have. And only 1/3 of Black students get information about the college going process within their household. And so we wanted to provide a resource to give good information with the understanding that so much has changed in the last 20, 30, 40 years since a lot of people went through the college process along with many other things that have changed. We wanted to shine a light on historically Black colleges and universities. And so, yes, currently, after, unfortunately, the death of George Floyd, HBCUs, historical Black college universities, received a lot of attention. However, only certain ones receive attention. We wanted to shine a light on the over 100 historically Black college universities and the opportunities that can produce themselves by attending these institutions. And then the most important thing that is kind of our mantra that we want to tell anybody who wants to listen is that we want to redefine what success looks like in college admissions. That there are 4,000 college and universities in the country, many more in the world. And we want people to keep an open mind and not just focus on only 75 schools when we know there are so many. And we want families to be very thoughtful about going through this process, thinking about what's best for your child and what their needs, but also thinking about money, as our colleague just highlighted, and the importance of that in the process.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for sharing all those points. And a lot of what you said are the foundation of why College Cafe was started. when my older son was in high school from 2005 to 2009, I'm like, oh, let's start the college process. And it was daunting. More forms, you have CSS profile, everything got more complicated. So everything that I would learn at this parent meeting at a program he was part of, an Upward Bound program that no longer exists, I would share it with other families. And you're right, there is so much information. It has changed a whole lot. And yes, now with ChatGPT and everything, kids are telling me, oh, we could use, no, you can't just use ChatGPT to write your essay. No, that's not going to work. They can figure it out. The mental health piece, even from myself working in elementary school, you almost see it at that point, because some of my kids, we have the Ivy class, and they're making announcements like, hi, I'm so-and-so, and I'm in so-and-so's Ivy class, so they're already putting a title on themselves, kind of already putting that pressure at 9 and 10 years old. So imagine when they get to the college, to the college application process. And then with the admissions piece, I, for a few years, was one of the alumni reps for my undergrad school, Barnard. And so you would see that like almost about 3/4 of their incoming class was accepted early decision. So what about the rest of the girls? And like you said, you either get deferred, so you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't get in, and now more stress on you. So you start to wonder, am I good enough? I didn't get into my number one school. Why am I not? But there are 4,000 schools in this country. There is some school that will fit you that is in a state you've never even heard of. So let's try and explore it.
I went to Alabama A&M sight unseen. Mm-hmm. I didn't visit any of the schools that I applied to. At least I can say my friend Tim went to Morehouse at least once on the college tour. Mm-hmm. I did,
but you applied more schools than me and Shereem combined.
So hey, I said wherever school I went to was gonna work for me, and it would, But it's different now. It's different. We have a lot of choice, and it's a different generation. So we have to visit the campuses. We have to ask the questions. Definitely.
And I say that a lot when I talk to families. I said, you have to visit, because now they can put the nicest buildings on that website, and you get there and you're like, wait, what is this? Or just your feel on a college campus. I remember walking onto one, and we just got out of the car in the parking lot. We're like, this is not the place for our child. But we were there. Had we not gone, we wouldn't have known that. So it's really, really important to do all those college visits. But I want to ask a question that's kind of an aside. Now, how did you two gentlemen meet? Because so far your schools are not the same. So how did you all meet and end up with this partnership? I think inquiring minds want to know.
Tim?
Yeah, so we've been obviously we talked about how long we've been in the profession, and our national association, NAAHP, National Association for Admissions College Counselors, has a conference annually. And about 10, 12 years ago, it was in New Orleans. We knew a mutual friend, and they introduced us. And then, so, at the time, Shereem lived in Atlanta. We would touch base from time to time. He wrote a book, self-published, and then I wrote a book, self-published. And so we kind of connected over that. And then, in 2020, Shereem had relocated back to the DC area, and he had this idea of let's write this book. And, since then, we've been, trying to share information, travel around the country, and get out the message that we want to redefine success.
Okay, thank you so much. Because I was wondering, like, how did they meet? So thank you.
Well, that's the extent of the things that are similar. Like, we are two completely different people, as y'all will see as this conversation continues to go on.
And it's the extent of, I'm not sure we would have met if it wasn't New Orleans and a lot of alcohol. So we met, we connected, and the rest is history.
Right. Well, New Orleans is the place for that.
New Orleans is the place for that.
Yes, I was recently there a few months ago, and that's definitely a place to go back and visit. Absolutely.
I was just saying I need to go to New Orleans to visit. Great food.
Yeah, you guys got to come down for Essence Music Fest. We've gone down separately, but we had our book at Essence last year. Okay. It was great energy to be around beautiful Black people. July 4th holiday. Wanting to talk about a variety of things. Obviously, during the day, it's the convention center, air conditioned, and we can have conversations about education, beauty. There's a beauty. There's multiple sections if you've ever been, but it's an amazing experience during the day. And at nighttime, what happens in Vegas, New Orleans,
Yes, we know
the concerts and the functions.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you. That you kind of segued into my next question for both teams of writers. So how should parents use your books? If somebody gifts it to them, or they happen to go to Essence Festival and you're there, if they pick up your book, what should they do with that book? How are they best?
I'll start. Which is I love this question because I actually wrote my book for 3 audiences: for the student, for the parent, and for the community. And within my achievement tree model, I talk about the fact that this young person, this individual we call our student, they start out with their parent, and they're a seed, and they are in soil. That soil is the parent. That soil includes also the community and their school. So those 3 factors, and you can kind of see it in my logo, those 3 prongs in the soil of where that student starts out is the parent. So the parent, and in every chapter of my book concludes with a so what. It says, for the student, what the takeaways you could take from this chapter, for the parent, and then for the school and community leader. So parents, of course, as they read the book, they're going to glean more based upon where their context, where they are with their student, if it's an elementary, middle, or high school student. But also, I give them some nuggets to think about with every chapter. The workbook that accompanies the book, where parents can now, you're building a practice. Here's the thing. When it comes to scholarship applications, I think the same can be true for college admissions applications, but definitely for scholarship applications, students are trying to talk about their achievements. What have I achieved? If it's an application for a scholarship that's merit-based, or it's about a specific focus area, could be arts, it could be athletic, it could be something with the community service. Some scholarship applications are going to come with those question prompts. They're going to ask you to list all of those your awards or what activities you've done, and typically it's that freshman year through junior year, because you're mostly doing these. You're already a senior, but for those first 3 years are going to be critically important. So the parents can work with their student to build a practice, almost like learning how to budget. As you are raising your student, you have now a tool that you can track their activities. I'm using it now with my niece, and we're looking at what is she involved in, what activities, how many hours is she spending per week in that activity, and how many weeks per month, and then how many months in that season of whatever that activity is. And it gives you spaces where you can track that time, but also note the skills. My niece is in Taekwondo right now, and they have these, not only the actual physical skills of the art, the martial art, but across the room, there are characteristics that they're building in all the students. So I can say and keep track of how many hours has she spent in this, in the martial art, but I can also notate the character building, discipline, perseverance, courage. And the branches of the tree is where you can notate these things that they're building. So it gives a framework across the entire spectrum of the tree to track. And now it's a tool. And you don't throw it away and do it once. You can use it all throughout the student's upbringing. It becomes critically important in high school because there's again, applications are going to be asking for that freshman year through junior, first semester, senior year of activities and awards. And you will know what fruit did they get out of that activity. So you grow from seed to identifying the 5 areas, getting activity, and students should have activities in all 5. But as they continue the activities, you're going to find 1 to 2 that they're really strong at. And the workbook will help you use that as a tool to guide them toward career research, career opportunities that they could tie to the activities that they really enjoy. So it's not about pushing students to just be scheduled and have activities and stay out of mom and dad's hair. No, this is about fun. what do you really enjoy? What makes you want to do the activity without mom and dad pushing you? Or I gotta make this grade to do that. You will do this regardless, right? And we say the same things when you get to your career. If you can find the activity that leads to a career you really enjoy, then you will say, how we say, you will do that career for free. You will do that job for free, right? Mm-hmm. So let's utilize that activity space and use my workbook and book as a tool to help to do that tracking. That way it's not so daunting when it comes time to figure out what's my student's story, what have they achieved, where did I have a challenge I had to overcome, how did I overcome it? You have something to really draw from.
Thank you. And using the word practice is a word that's part of our vocabulary, because if the kids are in sports, they're going to practice. If they play an instrument, they're practicing. So that kind of makes
always
it
about practice
to them.
You know that the adage that I got it from the Outliers book by Malcolm Gladwell, that the idea of 10,000 hours to mastery. When you can utilize this tool to really track, and is my young person building 10,000 hours towards some mastery of skill or art or architectural, talent, and it will help you figure out, people don't just become great athletes or get to the NFL or the NBA because they were just a prodigy. They really spent time honing their craft. So let's do that across all types of careers that young people could consider.
Okay, thank you. Absolutely. So gentlemen, your book, what should parents do or maybe not do?
We got great advice when we started the book, which is we don't want it to be something you got to read from chapters 1 through 12 or 13, right? We want it to be something that you read the table of contents and you pick your spots of what you want to learn, what's on your mind. And I think that's actually, we achieved that because we've heard from different parents in different situations what they found to be fruitful. The biggest takeaway, we want people to use the expectations for success timeline. We get a lot of questions about when should they start the process. So I think that's a good place to kind of warm up to the process in terms of understanding what needs to happen and when in order to be successful. So that should be the takeaway. Use that piece well. But we definitely want the conversation to also revolve around with teenagers and what do teenagers find attractive, right? They look at sports and entertainment and social media, and those are the cool things. And we get that. I got kids. So we made a list of over 100 famous Black Americans who are college graduates. And what we want that to do to show teenagers is that, and parents who just don't know, that success, as Tim keeps saying, does not equal Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Howard, Spelman, Morehouse, Alabama, A&M, Barnard, Columbia, Wesleyan. There are Black people who have graduated from college from all over the country that are successful. How do you redefine success? So I think the two biggest takeaways would be the timeline, but also to engage students properly by helping them to see, hey, you can go to a variety of different places and be successful in your craft no matter what. Tim, you want to add on to that?
I mean, the only thing I'll, add is that, we wanted to, parents to really think about perception versus reality. And parents hear a lot of things, or parents have gone through the process with their child and hear other things, what we call the wine and cheese circuit. And we want people to actually have really, this is what's going on. This is information that can help you in this process, and not to be dependent upon secondhand information that sometimes is incorrect and may not be the best for your child. And so we just want people to have a resource in which they can go to. And so, yes, while the title is Black Families Guide to College Admission, we also, want to put it in the hands of educators and allies who may not be Black to better understand the experience that Black families and Black students are going through as they navigate this process. To say, I maybe don't know what historically Black college or university. Maybe all I know is Spelman and Morehouse and Howard. I don't know about where Alabama A&M is at. I didn't know that, not too far from Alabama and A&M is Alabama State. And the other, I believe 5 HBCUs that are in the state of Alabama. And so providing that information for families is something we also really wanted to, highlight as well.
Okay, thank you. And then you segued into my next question, which would be, how can the book support the guidance counselors at the high schools? Because a lot of times, I'm in a school district where some of the counselors don't look like our children. totally different ethnicity. So how can the counselors use the books to support the children to get to where they need to go?
I mean, I think you nailed it, right? Like we wrote it knowing that 80% of the guidance school counselors in the country are white women. Bless their hearts for wanting to support, help in the ways that they can. But again, their educational, all of our educational and scopes is limited, and sometimes they need to be introduced to new things. My wife tells a great story of when she was in high school. She told the college counselor she wanted to go to a historically black college university. She wanted to go to Howard, and he told her, "Don't go to a school like that. They're not very good." Right. So that's miseducation. He did not know. So I'm not going to be mad at that man. I'm going to say, hey, take a book, read up on the history, understand the greatness of HBCUs, and more importantly, expand your knowledge. So yes, 100%. We want the book to get into as many hands as possible. It's definitely not only for, students who probably don't read paperback books anymore, or parents. It's for educators who know that they need it, who need to know more about HBCUs other than Morehouse, Spelman, and Howard. To understand that the process is very similar regardless of race, and have that confirmed for them. Tim and I have been in this space respectively for 25, 5 years plus each. And I can confidently say that no other college admissions book out there is written by two people who have the same information, or it's equal. We're just as smart as everybody else who you read in a book anyway. We know just as much about the college admissions process as anybody else writing a book out there. So again, bless their hearts, but very rarely do I think that they have black kids in mind. So white educators, allies who want to support education of all kids, but particularly black kids, you need this book in your life. You need it to help you to do your job better. So we are actively trying to speak in front of school districts and counselors who want to hear us. We are here to make a real impact. And in order to do that, we know we got to start with the people who are really talking to the kids and the families on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And Ms. Givens, did you want to share a little bit more about your book and how it's supporting counselors?
Yeah, I think for school districts, this is, again, a tool to not replace the guidance counselor, but to help the guidance counselor manage the 500 plus students they got to get to college, right? In a high school senior class. One of the biggest things I think is giving the students something that they could use to do their self-inventory, right? They can really reflect on, okay, sometimes the most unassuming activity could be the activity that really shows how that student shines. But the student may not see that activity as something very special that can show them what they could do with it. And so that's why I think through the stories, it allows the students to see how I use the activities to build myself, to overcome a challenge, to help others, and things like that. And then the workbook allows the student to inventory themselves, their awards, to really stop and think. I've been working in a national scholarship organization for over 9 years now. And amazingly, we have found that many students don't even apply for scholarships because they believe they can't receive the money. They believe that they wouldn't get selected. And that's probably another reason why I start, young people not even applying to college, right? But the reality is the scholarship committee cannot even consider giving you the scholarship if you have not done the application. And so this is about making that application process less daunting. And if you can start working with students over the course of freshman year, which is where they're going to have to kind of start with their timeline of what they've achieved, they can start freshman year, build it little by little, track themselves little by little, get involved, know that they can know that guidance counselors can support students. And now either if they haven't done a lot of exploration in activities that they enjoy, let's get that going freshman year. As a guidance counselor, guide them towards getting involved with activities to find out what really gets them excited. If they come into the high school with a lot of activities and they're doing it all, like they're well-rounded, let's work on building their leadership and honing it in. I call that going deep. So go broad, elementary to middle school, then go deep. And so now it's go deep. Now scaffold up your leadership, scaffold up your skill building. If you're a good writer, do the writing competition, do the poetry slam. If you are a dancer and you always on stage, why don't you go teach a class? start another group, show your leadership. And that is what the committees are wanting to see. How have you invested in yourself, and then how have you invested in others? So this gives the guidance counselor a tool that they can put alongside their annual work with students to help them chronicle and write about what they have achieved over the course of their 4 years, for sure.
Thank you for explaining that a little bit more. And a couple points on a personal level. At work, actually, we started a health club for the first year. And so we were telling the kids that they can add this to their resume of activities. And then we even had elections, and we had them get up and give speeches as to why they should be president, treasurer, whichever. Again, talking to them about developing those leadership roles and understanding what the different positions mean. And again, putting that on your resume. So even starting in the 3rd through 5th grade, having an activity that you're doing and having a leadership role in that. And then with our younger son going through the application process, we had learned from the older son. I always say apologies for what we didn't know, but we kind of honed in with the younger one, and were able to help the guidance counselor by figuring out where his strengths were and what schools he needed to apply to and things like that, because the counselor had a whole lot of people that he was working with. So you help, hopefully, for families to understand that you can read the book, but you have to do the work in the workbook. It's not effective at all. And like you said, it will help, especially when the counselors have to write your letters of recommendation. They can look and see what you've done and can write a more personal letter as opposed to that blanket letter of great student or some of those words that are so.
And they can also, because of the way the model works, the student has to identify who their mentors are. So then it takes a little pressure off the guidance counselor, because in your achievement tree, you're noting some of the other people, adults who have been a part of your life, who have been giving to you and supporting you, and they can write some of those recommendations. And so you're not putting all your eggs on and all of the shoulders on the guidance counselor or the other teachers. There's so many people that really could speak well of you as a student. You got to just ask and show them that process. And now I'm sure that my co-panelists can tell the student how to get that good recommendation written.
You got to share information with the teacher about you. The teacher has to keep it discipline specific. And, I think there's also parents. We encourage parents to get in to partner with their kids in this process, to not just the passion side, and to really take the reins and not control the kids' process, because you need to balance and you need to partner with them and have a compromise. But parents can oftentimes share insights about their child with a school counselor that can help them to write their school counselor letter. So we are understanding that, yes, words matter, essays and recommendations matter. One of Tim's colleagues at Emory has actually written his dissertation about the importance of college letter recommendation writing. So yes, it is a critical thing.
Absolutely. Thank you. So we had talked already about a little bit about the difference in the 2nd edition, having the mental health piece on it. But can you talk a little bit more about it and what parents will get from this 2nd edition if they have not read the first one yet?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first thing is we hear a lot in the media about what the Supreme Court decision, the end of affirmative action, but there's not a lot of information about how it really looks or the history of it as it pertains to that. So we just give a high level overview of the history, how we arrived at this place, and what it looks like moving forward, so families could begin to think about, how do I need to consider this in the process? And, as Shereem talked about in the first edition, a lot of people says we want more information about essays. How, do our essays stand out in this process? In light of the Supreme Court decision, should we be writing about race? Should that be something that we highlight in our application? And so we talk about how to go about that process, but also ChatGPT, AI, and how that, can influence the process. And so for those who maybe don't have a good college counseling office, or maybe don't have access to, somebody to support them in their writing, AI then can become a tool to help you brainstorm and think about your ideas and get those ideas flowing so that you can write an essay to make you stand out. And then we talked about the mental health as far as, kind of thinking about that in this process. We can't take all the stress and anxiety out of the college admission process, but what are ways that collectively us, students taking their part, parents taking their part, secondary schools, colleges, everybody saying, is there something that I can do to alleviate some of the pressure in this situation? We wanted to highlight that. And then, it's a touchy topic, but we wanted to talk about how social media plays into this. And it's great to catch that video of somebody opening up and getting it in. But what about if it doesn't happen? What does it do to the psyche? And what does it do when people see all their other friends getting in on social media and they're not? So how does social media play in that? A couple other things that we touched upon is 2 years colleges. We know that, the life isn't linear, that sometimes there are different paths people take, and there are certain things that people need. And the 2-year system in this country is a great opportunity for, one, people to save money, two, for opportunities for people to find themselves in the case that maybe they're not ready to go to 4-year campus, still need to be at home, or any number of reasons. There are a lot of great college athletes that started at 2-year schools and transferred to 4-year schools. So we just wanted to talk about the 2-year process, the transfer, process. And then, throughout the book, we highlight various colleges, universities. And so when we mention, Alabama A&M, there might be somebody in here, I don't know where Alabama A&M is at. It's in Huntsville, Alabama. It has about this many students. This is the area that they specialize in. It's a land grad institution. So you have a quick snapshot of, of that school. And if you wanted to go deeper, it's in the SIAC, or when I was in school, it was the SIAC conference, in which I won multiple times in cross country and track. I just had to put that out there.
And we are now on the SWAC. I got you.
Hey, I aged myself.
I love it.
Thank you. Couple things I want to touch on. So one of the episodes in our first year doing this webinar series, we had a couple representatives from one 2-year school here in Bergen County, New Jersey, and another one in Massachusetts. Lots of opportunities to start at a 2-year school for all the reasons that you mentioned. And then lately, what I've been saying to folks is that it doesn't matter where you start, it's where you finish. And the thing is, when you go to the doctor, you don't ask him if he went to a 2-year school first. If your hip is bothering you, you want to know that he's the best hip surgeon. How many hip surgeries have you done? You're not going to an eye doctor for your arm. That's what's important. Can you fix my problem? So that's all that matters in that process. And so something I want to touch on as relates to the number of schools that students are applying to. It's almost crazy. You hear kids applying to 30 and 50 schools. So what are your thoughts? I have my own personal feelings as relates to the mental health piece, in that, you applying to 50 schools because you just want to see if you want to get in. But there's that child who applied to that one school and they don't get in, but yet you got into it and you don't really want to go there. So again, let's talk about that. Let's if you don't mind sharing, let's talk to the kids who are feeling that they have to apply to 50 schools so they can have more choices. Like how many choices do you need?
That's your business, Shereem. That's what you do. Come on, give it to the people.
I want to be very clear. People have the right to do whatever they want. So I want to be very clear. You choose to apply to 50 schools, you do that. Recognize that you can only go to one. Mm-hmm. Recognize if you apply to 50 schools, there's a good chance you don't really know about each of those 50 schools and why you would really want to go there. So not having do your due diligence, but just doing it as a popularity contest is not something I personally agree with as an educator. But I wish that we didn't have this culture that we want to just to see if we get in, when it's wasting somebody's time. I understand money's not necessarily involved in, if you use things like the Black Common App. We're a big fan of it. And I think you'd apply to like 60 schools with $20. Mm-hmm. But I do think it's not, most students have not done their research on why that school is a good fit for them. And that's unfortunate. So with that, I encourage in my business that students apply somewhere between 7 and 12 schools. I think 9's a sweet spot, 13, maybe 15. But once you start getting past 15, I think that you're really shooting. And again, I could be old, right? I'm almost 50, but I do think that there's a particular process that you must go through in order to make correct decisions. And if you have, let's say you want to be on the high end and do 15, on the low end 12, you do 4 REACH schools, maybe even 3 REACH schools, meaning schools that are, it's a good chance to have probably 25% admit rate or less that to get in, which again, it's very difficult for anyone to get in, regardless of race, creed, color, grades, anything. It's just there's just too many applicants for not enough spots. Then there's the target spot, right? So you have the REACH schools, 3 or 4 schools, 5 at the max, and then you have 3, 4, 5, ideally a little bit more target schools in which you feel like there's a 50% chance I get in because they have a 35 plus admit rate. They go to 70, that works for them. That by your grade, scores, activities, and interests that it aligns with you, and that's probably where you're going to end up. But again, I'm never going to tell somebody not to aspire for something, but in this very competitive college admissions climate, we need to be thinking, not that we shouldn't be ambitious, never, ever, ever, ever saying that, but this is the nature of the beast. Mm-hmm. And now with the Supreme Court decision, we do not want kids biting off more they can chew and think about applying to 8 Ivy League schools. If I just apply to 8, I got to get into 1. You won't. And mental health, as we discussed, will be even a bigger issue. I digress. So then we talk about the safety schools or foundational schools. So if you do 4 of those, a lot of times they're in-state, they're financially well-resourced, things that make sense academically and or financially. We hope that you'll have 3, 4 of those. So again, 4 safeties, 4 targets, 4 reaches, you got 12. Add another one to that, you got 15. But I think that should be it. I'm one person. But I've seen enough kids for that process to work, right? And I've seen a lot of kids go up from that, and depends on what you think work means. So that would be my response. Hopefully I wasn't too long-winded.
Nope, you weren't. And you said some things that I've always thought as well, that time factor, especially applying to 50 schools takes time. You could be doing some scholarship applications, right, Ms. Givens? You can get that money.
Well, when I think about the what schools do you apply to and why, my rule of thumb, and this is, again, I'm trying to get a paradigm shift. My paradigm shift that I'm pushing through my book and my conversations with communities and parents is, and this is not diminishing college, but college is the conduit, the pathway to what the career aspiration is. And my paradigm shift is I really want to help students and parents to help students think about where they want to, what does that career look like for me? And then let's be strategic. We should be a strategic teenager and what major you're choosing. And then what institutions, based upon the formula that that Shereem just offered, can give me that major, the 4, you got 4 top, 4 Ivies, 4 safe, 4, I think I'll just get in. Let's know why we are applying to those schools. Mm-hmm. And in that way, wherever you end up, that's why I apply. I knew specifically in computer engineering. And that's a technical, very narrow technical field, right? And everything. So that allowed me to be a little more narrow. But maybe you want to go liberal arts. What do you want to do with that liberal arts degree? And there's so much you can do with it. So much. But you have to have some time to think about who am I, who do I want to become, so that you're applying. Now, think about the fact that not every student may want to go the college route, and they may want to but everybody needs some type of post-secondary path, post-secondary growth area. Then think about, and our country is not only in dire need of more medical professionals, nurses, doctors, mental health practitioners, but we are also in desperate need of vocational professionals and who are building these bridges, all this money over the next 20 to 30 years, 30, maybe even 50 years, to rebuild the infrastructure of our country. We'll need the construction. We'll need the urban planning. They will need people who can lay cement. They will need masonry. There's so much need in vocational areas that's where the architect comes into play. The students who want to work with their hands and be out in the field. They don't want to be behind a desk, supply chain logistics and working at our ports in those areas. There is so much that a young person can navigate towards, that maybe a 2-year certificate or licensure for a very specialized area is where that student should do their work and to begin into that field, because you can make a 6-figure salary with some areas that doesn't require you to do a 4-year degree.
Right.
And the reality is we need both. There is no, this one has more value and that one has more value. It's who are you supposed to be in giving to this world and giving to our society. And we value the people building those really great bridges that our cars are going across as much as we also value those who are building the cars. And we know now building our planes. Okay. So we need everybody. So let's allow our young people to have an opportunity to figure that out, and let's support them in whatever path they're going to take to get there and find the money to find the money and the scholarship or the degree that won't break the bank for the family, but yet the young person will come out on the other side with a wonderful career with growth potential.
Well, I've always been saying lately as well that the doctor, lawyer, engineer needs a plumber, mechanic, a hairdresser. Very important.
All of them.
You only need 2 years of education. And I used to always not like when people say, oh, my child's not college material. And I'm like, well, maybe they're not going towards a career that needs that type of 4-year degree, but they still have to learn. They still have to take tests and get certifications for building that bridge or taking care of the pipe work. You have to learn something. So where is our strength? And that's where the parents come in as well. It has to be a family affair. A lot of times families will tell me, oh, my child got into school. I said, well, what is it about that school that your child liked? And they didn't know. They're not having those conversations. But now we need to have those real conversations because there's money behind it. So let's take a couple questions that came from our virtual audience. The first one said, what advice would you give a student who is at the crossroads of picking between a strong academic PWI and an HBCU?
It's a very personalized question, and I'm not saying that to dodge it. I think that the student needs to realize, parents need to realize, number one is cost. I'm going to lead with that. What's the cost of each school? What is the money looking like? Because again, in any college search process, the cost needs to be a big part of the conversation. It doesn't need to be the deciding factor, but it needs to be heavily discussed. The location of a school, how far is it? Is it where the student wants to be? Which one is closer to home, if that's what they want, or further from home, if that's what they want? What's the possible major, and can they major at both at either school and kind of have the same kind of level of support academically? And then the career piece is a little less. I think we're in this weird time of there are things you can do with a variety of degrees. But in terms of PWI versus HBCUs, I don't know if that's really the question. It's what does your child need now? What do they say they need from the cultural environment? What do they need from an academic environment? It's not one is better than the other. It's more important that they put themselves in the best position to succeed.
Okay.
And so I mean, the one thing I'll add, and I don't mean to nitpick, but it says picking between a strong academic PWI and HBCU college, which could give the implication that HBCUs aren't strong academically. And so, one of the things that I want to say is that, really, when I think about my experience going to Morehouse, I would not trade it for anything in the world. But working 20 years at Emory, I see the value in how somebody could want, saying, hey, I want to be a doctor. There's no hospital on Morehouse's or in the AUC, but there's a huge hospital on Emory's campus. So yes, there's access. Maybe there are more resources. But what I would also say is, how often in this country does a African-American Black student between the ages of 18 and 22 get to be in a majority environment, to be able to walk into the classroom and see people who look like them, to not have to worry about, somebody asking about my hair. Am I here on an athletic scholarship? Or to, have to deal with imposter syndrome. That's just something that our children don't too often have. And, I have to say, what are the trade-offs? I'll say all money's not good money. You can go to a lot of predominantly white institutions, and they'll give you a lot of money to go there. However, what is your experience going to be? How is that? Are you going to have a place to get your hair done? Are you going to be able to celebrate your faith life or any number of additional things? And so When I tell people ask me that question very directly, I said, what does your child need? If you are in it for the academic and you want to go for the resources and the beautiful campus, yes, more than likely, you probably want to go to predominantly white institution. However, if you say my child has been raised in the suburbs all their life, they've never been around a lot of Black people, maybe a connection to other Black students and Black culture is something that they can need, that could benefit them. And the last thing I'll just say is there's this misconception that one, HBCUs only have Black people at them. That's not the case. They are very diverse. And, two, I think there's also this misperception that they're not going to prepare them for the real world or the next steps. And I just point you to the Vice President currently of the United States, Kamala Harris, who went to Howard University. I point to, if we want to applaud President Barack Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama, happy belated birthday, and all the success of their Ivy League education and institutions and being the first family. We want to celebrate them, but it would not have happened if not for Oprah Winfrey, who graduated from Tennessee State, a historically Black college and university. So as we think about the preparation, what our students need, one of the things in our book, that's why we have over 100 Black college graduates, so you can see that both paths will equal success and not make assumption that one is better than the other.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that. And I have to admit, I honestly, when I was in school, I don't think I knew enough about HBCUs. So I didn't know enough about them. But as the years have gone by and in talking to different people, and then the last few years hearing that, I believe like 27% of our STEM graduates are graduates of HBCUs. Ms. Givens is example of that. So again, we hear information, but we really don't process and don't really get to the nitty gritty. Okay, how is this school going to best fit me and what my needs are? And one thing I usually say to families is when you're really going to visit these schools, bring a notebook with you to take notes, because after a while, all the schools sound the same. They all look the same. They got the same walls, the cafeteria, but what is it about that school that attracted you or maybe didn't attract you? Because you need to know that information. So let's take another question from the audience, which is, what other school staff should a student or parent also reach out to if the school guidance is not being as proactive as they could be regarding one's child?
I'll take that one. It's a tricky question because I understand that you want to go to the person whose job it is to help your kid navigate, and if they're not being proactive as much as you want them to be, what's next? I don't want to say you go over the head to the principal, but I do think that there's a value in talking to a teacher who's hopefully probably been to college and maybe has a little bit more information. You still got to go to the guidance counselor at some point. There are organizations, community-based organizations that do a lot of good college counseling work. There are companies like mine, Strategic Admissions Advice, that can at least start you along that path. But I don't want you to think for 1 second that this process can be done without the support of the guidance office in some capacity. Again, we heard a startling statistic the other day. If you go to our podcast, Application to Admission, the CEO of NAAHP, National Association of College Admissions Counselors, highlighted a statistic that in Arizona, there's 900 students for every one counselor. That sounds bananas to me. I knew it was like 500, 400, 250. That's a lot. But 900 seems exorbitant. The bottom line is that person's still someone in that office, some kind of support staff has to issue a transcript to most of these colleges. They have to facilitate it. Thus, you can't avoid them. It's unfortunate that they're not being as proactive. You're not solely dependent upon them because you can use a teacher, you can use a community-based organization, you can look up a company like mine, but you have to make sure that you keep letting somebody know that the school counselor and I have to connect because this is what they know more than I do about this, and you want to make sure you get, that you're on that person's radar screen.
Absolutely. I always tell the parents, especially once you start high school, you want to make the guidance counselor your best friend. Parents, go introduce yourself. Say, I'm so-and-so's mom, dad, and let them know what your goals are for your child and help them be an ally towards you. And a lot of times too, it's how you say things. It's how you present yourself. I think our boys' guidance counselors must have had me on speed dial because I would call it like, "Hi, Miss Sadler, how are you?" They were part of the process because we had spoken to them about what our expectations for our boys were, and so they were able to provide what we needed, in a timely fashion whenever we asked for it. So definitely on that point. So, and anything else that we did not discuss that we want to let the virtual audience know as far as this process? Oh, well, I have a question about your books. Are they an audio version, or are there plans to become audio? Because some people don't have time to actually read the book, but they might have an hour-long commute. So let's share what other forms will be available.
Mine will be a digital version. There'll be a digital version, like an ebook, but I don't think I'm gonna have an audio book right away. Right now, my book is in pre-sale, and so it's available online in pre-sale. I'm looking forward to getting those print copies out very shortly in the next few months. But I think I definitely wanted to do an audio book as well, because sometimes people are auditory learners, right? So not everybody wants to read the print. But definitely an ebook. So it would be published with an e-version as well as the paperback.
And ours is on audiobook for the first edition. So there are 3 new chapters. So if you listen to the first edition, you can get 80% of the information. But the second edition, we don't have an audiobook yet. Is available on Kindle. So if you go to Amazon, you can choose which platform that you would like to. So, definitely thanks in advance for the support.
No problem. So yes, and anything else you want to share about your books, any upcoming maybe places you'll be where families can find you, meet you in person?
Sure. Thank you. The book is, again, the book is really a purposeful project. We wrote it for everybody on this call for a different reason. And I saw someone mention that trade school conversation was hitting off in Facebook real well. Excellent. All we want is for students, young people to be in the right place at the right time in their lives. I always say there are 4 places that kids can go after high school. They can go to college or trade school. Education. They can continue their education in some capacity, college or trade school. That's what we're here for. Then get a job. And that's a good thing. If kids aren't ready to go start that piece of number 1, then go get a job. Oftentimes that job's going to be hourly and isn't necessarily going to lead to a career, but it's a good start. And as long as it's seen from a perspective there's a start, we applaud that. We still want you to ascend, because we believe that colleges and trade schools are the best way to kind of ascend in this country. Number 3, you can go to the military. My father's a Vietnam vet. I applaud students who do it. I'm not going. But if you want to go, please, thank you, do that. Because, again, it helps a lot of young people the discipline that they need to then be very productive and responsible adults. And the last place is jail. No. So we don't want you going to jail. We can accept you going to the military. We can embrace that. We understand getting a job, but we really want you to think about going upward in secondary education or a trade school. So that's what we really want you to know, that's where our book comes from, a place of wanting to make a contribution, as you said, Ms. Gibbons, to all young people, but particularly Black people. Please go to understandingthechoices.com is where you'll see where we're going to be next. We are going on a big world tour. You can listen to our application to admission podcast. And Timmy, anything else I forgot?
It is, and just very briefly, because I know we're up against it, and we obviously want to share the time. But given the audience, that there are a lot of families that may have immigrated to the United States or have an immigrant story, how would you say that they share that in their applications, given SCOTUS? And can you just talk about how this isn't new, given your work experience?
Wonderful. Thank you for highlighting that. Big believer in essays, as I mentioned earlier, and I still think that despite the SCOTUS decision, that we never mute ourselves. We don't allow anybody to tell us how we want to represent ourselves. And again, a lot of times race and culture, right? Let's remember that culture, and that could be a Jewish culture, that could be a Hindi culture, that could be a Russian culture, influences the first 16, 17 years of our lives. So we encourage students to write about their lived experiences. And yes, that means race. Should you write about, Director of Admissions, I'm Black. By the way, did you know I'm Black? My mama Black, my daddy Black. No, we don't want that. My mama Haitian, my daddy Haitian. I've been to Haiti. We don't want that, but we want it woven or weaved into your story because it's important. Because colleges need to know who they're accepting, so they can ideally create this diverse class that they claim that they want to create. But more importantly, we never, ever, ever want any student to feel like they have to talk about their grades, their scores, their activities. We want to know who you are from the inside, who you are and what's important to you. And a lot of times, not always, a lot of that is part of the documented life experience that you've had, and that may have to do with race. So I don't think I wrote about myself being a Black boy from Brooklyn in my college essay, but I'm sure in some place in my application it was clear that that's what I was, and we want to make sure everybody represents themselves and their culture.
Thank you. Thank you. I wanted to add on to what you said also about the pathways after high school graduation. Our new superintendent in my district said that students will either be enrolled in college, as you said, employed in a job, or enlisted, going into the military. And in my family, I'm the oldest of 7 children. There are about 15 grandchildren in the family, 3 great-grands, and 2 of the young men were kind of heavy on the boys. One of them, after a year of college, decided that he wanted to go into the military, and he has been thriving. Smart kid, and he's done phenomenally well. Another nephew graduated high school and was still trying to figure out. He started off at a 2-year school and still hadn't found himself. Then all of a sudden went on to mechanic school and is doing so well, working on cars, I don't even know what he's talking about, but he knows cars. So again, there's a pathway for you. It's just a matter of figuring it out. And families, you have 2 resources here that will help you with your children to figure out where to go and start having those conversations so that your children can be the best they want to be. What I say to families is, you don't want a 30-year-old sitting on your couch doing nothing. So we need to start having those conversations, and also being willing to say no to our kids too. Sometimes we find that parents, if she'll say, oh, I want to start baseball, I don't like it after like 2 weeks. No, we don't quit things. Let's write it out. And right. And at least, as you said, that could be something you talk about in your experience. So everything you do has value. So let's do it.
That's good. That's good, Ketsia. It does. Everything you do is never going, it has value. It's not going to go wasted. I wanted to add that one thing as we are closing out, is that I don't want parents to be fearful that, or students to be fearful that, oh, what if I choose the wrong college? Or what if I choose the wrong major? I got a full scholarship to go and study computer engineering, and I worked in the field for 3.5 years. I experienced some major layoffs when I was, even with my technology degree, and I was good. I was a good engineer. But I got in there after 3.5 years. I just didn't find my path forward. I didn't have the mentors in that space at that time. I think it's changed a lot now, which is great. I didn't have the movie Hidden Figures. I think if I had Hidden Figures in front of me, I would have toughened it out a little longer. But I didn't know I was a hidden figure at that time. I really didn't. But every position that I had, when I made that shift and I followed my passion to go into this field and to get my master's in public administration, every single position that I got from that point forward, and I'm now 20 years in, the managers hired me, and I got my advancement because I could think, and they saw that I had an engineering background, and they said, I need you on my team. I need somebody who knows how to solve problems. Mm-hmm. And I have used that systems thinking and analytical mindset that I got from engineering. That's why I wouldn't change my path in no way, shape, or form, because I have to solve social problems. I work in designing internship programs for students of color, and you got to look at students from a different perspective. You got to look at the formula of what is impacting them from getting that career. So I'm using those skills every single day. And so don't think that if my student goes this direction and they're not sure that they're missing out on something. There is value in every piece of the education that they got. There were young men that went to engineering with me that got engineering degrees or chemistry degrees and math degrees, and they're doctors. They're medical doctors now, right? So they went to anesthesiology. So it's not like you can't make the shifts or go on to ways. So and also the question about support in the process. There are college access programs in our communities. that parents can use Google in that respect. Find a college access program. New York City has so many college access programs available to students that you can tap into. So utilize those spaces to get the extra support, but never think that your guidance counselor could be busy, but support them in that work. Do all the steps the guidance counselor gives your student to do, but couple that with additional supports if you feel that you need it as a family, with different community resources that are out there, and nationally there's some in pretty much every neighborhood.
All right. Well, thank you so much tonight for sharing your expertise, your wisdom, your books, up and coming and past books. I hope that the families out here and the students really were taking notes. Again, the broadcast will be live if you missed pieces, if you need to rewatch it, because so many gems were dropped this evening. So families, we are out here to help you figure out what your child's career will be, where their success will be is different for everyone. So again, I want to thank our guests, Ms. Taliah Givens, Mr. Timothy L. Fields, Mr. Shereem Herndon-Brown, for taking some time out of their Wednesday evening to share with us. And of course, again, thank you, our partners, Golden V, How Parent Matters, College Cafe, and of course, the National Alliance for the Advancement of Haitian Professionals, for providing us with this platform to talk to our families. So to everyone, we want to say good evening, good night, stay well, stay warm if you're in the cold, and if you're down where it's hot, send us some warmth up this way.
Please.
Please. And thank you so much. And you all, and we'll see you on the next broadcast. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Take
This was
care.
great.